Yep, hello, welcome to another video. This one I'm going to be talking about how to essentially avoid losing game level 1 in a matchup where you have a winning state. So this is the LeBlanc Azir matchup, and we're going to talk about specifically looking at the discussion on why Azir is going to lose this lane level 1 is pretty much under the basis of just pushing wave 1 so hard, right? So when you bomb wave 1 like this, the only real reason why you want to bomb wave 1 like this is if you need to get priority in the lane immediately to move somewhere, or if you're looking for like a really super hard crash and a bounce on wave 3, but that even isn't necessarily true because you could always just crash on second and still bounce on 3. And so there's really no reason to just hard kill all of the first minions against a champion when we look at the traditional LeBlanc. This is not the static with fleet. So this is the more like older LeBlanc version, which is the more, I guess, permanent version, which Riot wants to, or I assume is going for here with the champion identity. But we're not gonna just bomb wave 1 because we're gonna have a really awful time, and we're not gonna be able to necessarily find any usefulness for crashing. So as you can see, he's still crashing the second wave, and I think why he does this is because he wants to crash on second and then bounce on 3 and 4 to avoid LeBlanc, full combo, right? But the problem with this is that he doesn't have a choice in terms of when it comes to jungle interaction. So as you can see, what's happening here is he didn't drop the ward early on, and he needs to kill off these 3 casters somehow. The goal in this lane at this point is to kill off the second wave as fast as possible. Because if you don't kill off the second wave as fast as possible, you're going to have a really hard time crashing the casters, considering LeBlanc will be level 3 on the 3rd wave. And so the reason why you slow push the first wave is you keep the wave near, very near to the middle of the lane, and then you stack the second, and then when the 3rd wave locks, it's somewhere in this region, and then you just crash all of it, and you can find a base, you can poke, or you can find a ward off of that, right? But Azir didn't do any of that. And I'll show you an actual example of an Azir doing exactly what I say and how the matchup is different. Now, in this case, as you can see, what's happening here is you see the 3rd wave coming out of the Nexus in comparison to the, with the distance on the 2nd wave. As LeBlanc wants to just trade now, because if LeBlanc can trade now, Azir blows all of his abilities on LeBlanc, and he doesn't kill off those 2 blue caster minions that he wants to take out. Likewise, jungle is also there. So at this point, it's really hard for Azir to be able to do anything against the casters with the LeBlanc trading on him. As you can see, notice how Scout the LeBlanc just waits before he chains, and this is just using no CC as a CC by essentially having the threat of the fact that the chain exists. He moves back. Azir now is in a really awful spot because he's half HP, and now he needs to try to crash the 3rd wave. So now what's gonna happen is LeBlanc wants to trade onto him while he's trying to crash the 3rd wave. Azir wants to get these minions under tower, and he wants to get out of the lane. Now, notice what's going to happen here. All right, so again, it's the same situation. So 3rd wave is locking with the 4th wave, and Azir can't kill it in time because it's the cannon minion. So now he's in a really, really tough spot. So all of this is really because he didn't ward on the early on with what he was trying to do by pushing 1 and 2 so quickly. I also don't agree with the fact that he should be pushing 1 and 2. It's pretty pointless to do so because it really gains him nothing. He could have slow pushed wave 1 and 2 and then crashed 3 if you really wanted to. If, let's say, for example, you're playing against a mid laner who's completely AFK between the first 2 waves, then you notice that you're going to crash 2nd wave and you don't have an option. At that point, you can crash 2nd wave and you can still achieve what this Azir wanted to achieve. But this is really just a this is just more of a reason not to just bomb the 1st wave for no apparent reason. So now what Azir wants to do is he's just going to try to base for teleport and then come back to the lane because he wants to get the crash off. But notice now LeBlanc has complete control of the lane, so it's a little bit awkward for Azir. And now, as you can see, because of how level 1 and 2 was played out, the first 3 waves were played out really improperly by enemy Azir, you can see that the crab priority is not possible here on the 4th wave as it's incoming. 4th wave is generally around 3:30 where the crab spawns, and so if you have a push lead at this time in the lane, then you can end up moving to crab. Now, this is actually Viego's fault that he ends up dying here. Partly Azir for playing the wave so poorly, but also Viego has a lot to do with the disaster that just unfolded in the river, because he could have easily gotten to bot crab instead of top crab, considering he has bottom priority and their enemy bottom is just based and it's going back to lane. But instead he plays for the top crab very irresponsibly and then ends up dying for it. Now as you can see, Azir is in the same horrible situation where he's trying to clear out the next wave in order to essentially get rid of this like random freeze happening. So when Azir leaves at this point, our goal in the lane as LeBlanc is just to find a slow push, and then we want to just try to get out of the lane as well. So this trade is really good, and when we trade like this, now all of a sudden Azir can't really like respond to counter, right? So as you can see, this is the cannon wave, and now what we want to do is we just want to crash the cannon wave and we want to base, and we want to base on cannon here because we can demat it. So this is like a demat recall where it's harder for LeBlanc to do this if the cannon existed, but the fact that she has demat, she can just completely bomb the wave and look for the base. Okay, so as you can see, LeBlanc is up 10 CS, had complete control of the lane, was able to find priority for Crab because Azir just couldn't play the lane. And a lot of this has to do with how Azir played level 1, 2, like wave 1, 2, 3. So let's look at an example where the Azir plays it properly, right? So right here, for example, notice level 1. Now this is more of a much easier matchup for Azir, I would say, considering it's Akali. Akali into Azir is a lot easier to play than LeBlanc into Azir, or Azir into LeBlanc, because LeBlanc can respond, Akali really cannot do anything. So as you can see now, what Azir in this case is doing, this is the correct way to play. He doesn't immediately just start bombing the first wave. He does look to slow push it. And then while he's slow pushing it, he's making sure that he's using his W, his soldiers, to try to get as much autos as possible onto the enemy Akali, okay? These autos that he's doing are not necessarily that, I don't think he has to shove it that hard, but it's fine. And he's just making sure he doesn't immediately hard shove the first wave. So in the first example, we see that the implications of like shoving the first wave and then having jungle interaction completely doing your lane. In the second game, we're going to notice this is a much more better opening for Azir, considering that he's able to build a wave and then he can crash it in accordance to whenever he wants. Now, as you can see, Trundle is like hard, invading, right? So Trundle is literally in the enemy jungle on bottom side. So he wards the top side to make sure that he has vision, but he leans towards the bottom side because he knows that Trundle is there. And now, as you can see, he's able to build the third wave, and now in this case, you have a number of options, right? So prior to this situation, let's say Akali did a really good job saving all of her HP, and you can't kill her. Let's also say that you have no reason to have any priority in the lane, because your jungle is not doing anything and there's no reason to really be pushing up. In that case, you can bomb the third wave and base for first blood, which is the cheater recall on 3 and then base. You can alternatively do a non-traditional recall, which would be which I guess a better way of saying it would be the non-traditional cheater recall, which would be to build up 4 waves and crash. Now, this is only if Akali is like very good at saving her HP and she's not like super low and she can't really be harassed under tower. Because if Akali is if Akali is like half HP and she's taking a lot of damage like she is in the wave here, then instead of basing, you can just stay and you can just keep harassing her under tower. And then if the Akali is farming under tower, she is just naturally losing CS because it's very impossible, even if you're like a really good player, to just be able to get all the CS while there's like an Azir poking you. So in this case, unfortunately, the problem in this lane here is that he should just crash third wave. Right, and if he's not going to crash third wave immediately, which he at this point there's really no reason to, because you can just build up the fourth wave. You should just look to slow push third wave here. You don't want to kill third wave immediately. Right, so notice this, like I don't want to kill third wave too hard. I want to keep priority. I want to get level 3 and I just want to zone her. Right, so here we get level 3, and now here, once we get 3 on this next auto, you see how 3 to 2, now we just slow push. Now we make sure we lock 3 with 4 and then we base. We want to make sure that we're not like hard killing all of the minions, right? Now, in this case, it seems like Akali is just walking up for like free damage, so we end up missing, did we just miss the cannon? I think we missed the cannon here, it's pretty tragic. Oh, it's really suck. It's not really, anyways, but yeah, so we missed the cannon, really unfortunate. But what happens, which is a lot worse, is that we end up not really gaining anything from building. Like, I think if we build fourth wave, it's a lot better here. Now here, I would just poke Akali because you're not recalling. The options to recall is just gone. Let's say Akali is a lot healthier. Then in that case, you either build 4 and crash in base, or you crash 3 in base. But because Akali is really low, it really doesn't matter here, because Azir can just place a ward down, which he already has on the top side, and he can simply just keep poking her out, crashing the 4th wave, crashing the 5th wave as well, and then perhaps basing late afterwards. Okay? That's primarily what he does. He just stays in lane. Now he's going to crash the 5th wave. So you want to crash the 5th wave because you want to get out of the lane. Now, if Akali starts bombing the 5th wave, then you just hold the lane, and then you just base as well. But if Akali doesn't bomb the 5th wave, then it's like, okay, well. Because like the goal for Akali, see, the goal for both mid laners is really the same thing here. It's just to get a base off. They don't want to play the lane anymore. But they just keep fighting. Okay. Yeah, so Akali shoves, and then Akali bases. So it's not the greatest. And then she TP's back. And now Azir unfortunately can't play the lane because he has no mana. So this is like not the greatest spot to be in, to be honest. So we needed to look for a base earlier. Anyways, those are the two different openings between level 1, where you can hard shove wave 1 and you're going to suffer because if things do not go well and you have no game plan and you're shoving wave 1, then it's not good. Likewise, we look at the second example. I think Scout did make some errors, but it's not as bad because he was able to slow push wave 1 and then build a much larger wave, allowing him to have the options to potentially base, the options to keep poking, the options to move into river, the options to ward. Okay, that is it for this video. See you guys for the next one. Bye.